You are one of about 45 million people doing so this Memorial Day holiday. And while gas prices are at a four-year high, more than 39 million people still expected to drive for their getaway. Nearly 4 million people are flying, even with airfares up an average of $89 nationally. For more, I'm now joined by Doug Flynn, founding partner of Flynn Zito Capital Management. Doug, good morning to you and happy Friday, sir.
Good morning, Mark.
I list off those numbers off the top. 45 million people still traveling this weekend. Does that number surprise you, just given the cost of everything right now?
Yeah, that is a record, and about 87% of those are going by car. So that is surprising. It doesn't seem like the high prices that you mentioned, the highest in 4 years for holiday weekend, are stopping people from getting in the car and driving. You do see, though, I have to say, at the lower income part of the spectrum, that about 40% of low-income people are not traveling. So that's a little concerning, and that probably has to do with the fact that gas prices are up over 50% since this war started.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us remember, last Memorial Day weekend, prices were $3.18, when we hit the pump to fill up for this weekend. What does that tell you just about overall general sentiment and mood from Americans? They are still willing to go on these trips right now.
They are, but I think, at some point, if you get gas, if the Strait doesn't open and oil prices go up another $20 a barrel, which is not unreasonable, that equates to about another 50 cents per gallon that we're going to be paying. And so now you're going to be seeing $5 average prices. That is a changer in terms of behavior. So I do think you start to see that. And that doesn't even include the downstream effects of what higher oil prices do to transportation and food costs and all the other things that people are feeling. And so right now, with the current prices, it is costing the average two-car family about $120 per month, more than they were spending. And that's just like an extra tax. And so if you do get that extra $20 a barrel on the oil prices, now they're going to be spending $160 a month more than they were just before that. And so people feel that.
Yeah, it cost me $80 to fill up the other day. I couldn't believe it, Doug. Gas Buddy is projecting a national average of $4.80 a gallon across the entire summer. Does that, when you say we could hit 5, is that what you're tracking as well?
Yeah, and remember, even if it opens tomorrow, the Strait that is, and oil prices start to come down, it takes a while for the prices to come down. We often say that it goes up in an elevator and it comes down on the stairs in terms of how fast that moves.
Up like a rocket, down like a feather. Yeah.
Exactly. All those. And that's exactly what happens with gas prices. You see a little bit of a drop, but for the long-term part, it takes much longer. So that is a concern. And now put it in perspective. If you go back 20 years ago and gas prices were below $3 a gallon, if you adjust those for inflation, it's funny, but $4.80 something is the equivalent price we should be paying. But what happened is we got used to sub $3 prices for gas. And when you get used to that, that's what you build into your budget. And so we don't like to see this. And I think long term, if we can get this behind us, we will get those gas prices back down. But it's going to take the better part of this year, probably into next year, before that really happens.
Yeah, a lot of people are daydreaming of the day that happens and we could possibly see 318 again. I know Iran is currently, looking at this latest proposal from the United States. The president apparently giving them a couple days to review everything and come back with an official answer. But if we do strike a deal and we do get the Strait of Hormuz back open, I know you say it'll take a while, but just how much longer would it take, even if a deal was struck this weekend?
Yeah, so the deal gets struck, and whenever it is, and then people can start to maneuver all the oil through there. Then we have to get an idea of how much infrastructure damage there is, which could take quite a long time to get back 100%. The real problem right now with why gas prices are going to remain high right now and through the summer is because while we talked about the demand being higher, the overall inventory is way down. And so what's happened is because we haven't been able to ship a lot of the oil that we need, all the countries in the world are lowering their inventory. And so that, anytime you have a high demand and a lower supply, that's going to keep prices up. So if we solve it and things get moving, you will see a little tick down on that anticipation. But for it to get all the way through, It's going to take 3 to 5 months. There's no question. And even then, we don't know what the longer term damage because of how they've bombed some of their neighbors and what have you. So that's what really needs to be seen.
Patience is a virtue.
That's what, yeah.
Lordy.
Exactly.
And last, before I let you go, any advice for families headed to the weekend? They're going to take these trips. They're going to, cut the fat from the budget elsewhere. Just any advice amidst all this uncertainty heading into the coming weeks and months, Doug?
Yeah, I think just overall budgeting is always about picking a number that you know you can afford to spend and trying to stick to it and avoid those impulse buys whenever you're there, like you're in the supermarket. That's the key. And if you try to do that as much as you can, I think you do end up better off in the long run.
Don't go to the supermarket hungry. That's always my foe.
Exactly.
Then everything makes it into the cart. It's dangerous. Doug Flynn, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
You too.